Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders, great millstone who I learned this truth from and who rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the 1/3, the large multitude, unto y'all say shalom. So, today I wanted to do a lesson on, civil unrest and how, it's already currently going out throughout the world, but eventually it's going to come here to Babylon the Great, aka America. Because these Babylonians, these Americans, they're comfortable. They're not worried about, the civil war, civil unrest, martial law, because they think that it's not going to happen. But 4 years ago you had a sneak peek of that. You had the L, the LOCK downs. People couldn't go out and just roam freely. They had curfews. And these measures are going to be implemented again. All that is needed is just a black swan event. That's going to push those draconian laws being established. And that's all going to lead to civil unrest, civil war, race wars, all types of, conflicts, to be, started. But, this is the first scripture I want to get is 2nd Esdras chapter 15, and I'm going to start at verse 14, and it reads, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein." So, that word woe, it means destruction. And, destruction to the world and them that, live in it, which is, these Babylonians, and throughout the world, people are drunk off that Babylon juice. And ultimately that's going to lead to their destruction because, they're not aware of what's going on. And they're going to get caught, like a thief in the night. They're not going to know what hit them. This is the next verse 15. "For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." Yeah, so that modern day sword, that's the gun, the firearm, some people might even use actual swords and knives, when they run out of ammo. And that's that one people shall stand up and fight against another, that's going into, that civil unrest, that civil war. When there's famines and pestilences, people are going to rise up and, fight against each other. This is verse 16. "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." So, that word sedition means, this is in the Merriam-Webster, and it reads, "Incitement of resistance to or insurrection against lawful authority." So, people aren't going to regard their local law enforcement, the police, they're going to fight against them. And ultimately, the police that are available, they're going to eventually stop fighting against the citizens and, go and protect their own families. There's not going to be a 9/11 in that day. People aren't going to regard their mayors, their local politicians. People are going to do what's, in their best interest, which is, looking for resources, going through house to house. You're going to have marauders. This is the next verse 17. "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able." Yeah, so, that's going into when those 15-minute cities get set up. People aren't going to be able to travel freely. They're going to have restrictions. They're going to have the LOCK downs, you know, so people aren't going to be able to roam freely, you know, and eventually when that MOTB gets implemented, you know, you're going to have that MOTB to go into certain cities and get certain goods. This is verse 18. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. So yeah, you know, there's going to be chaos, you know, throughout every city. You know, people are going to go house to house, you know, looting, you know, ravishing, you know, taking, you know, spoils. And, you know, people are going to be afraid. Verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Yeah, so people, you know, that used to be cool with each other, you know, friends, family, you know, neighbors, they're going to turn against each other, you know, eventually for that lack of bread, you know, all the famine, you know, people are going to go house to house, you know, looking for food, water, and they're not going to regard their neighbors, you know. They're eventually going to turn against each other and, you know, unalive each other. So, next scripture that I want to get is this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and I'm going to start at verse 7, and it reads, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquake in diverse places. Yeah, so, you know, we see all these current signs going throughout the four corners of the earth. You know, you got kingdom going against kingdom, you know, that's going into, you know, the different nations. You know, you got Iran versus Israel, Russia versus Ukraine. You know, you got famines currently going throughout the world. You know, it's a lot of foods being recalled. You know, poison, you know, with certain bacteria. You know, and people are even dying of, you know, eating that contaminated food. You know, you got pestilences. You know, you got the MPOX virus going on. And you got earthquakes, you know, in diverse places, you know, places that there's really never been earthquakes like that before. Now it's a common thing, you know, and these are all signs of the times, you know, tokens of that the end is near, you know, Yahweh's return is near. But, you know, first, all these things must come to pass, you know, because prophecy has to be fulfilled. So I'm going to get this next scripture. This is Mark chapter 3 and verse 24, and it reads, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand, and if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Verse 26, and if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. So, you know, this is going into Esau going against Esau, you know. You know, the different nations, you know, they're all Esau, but ultimately they're not in agreement with each other. You know, you got Russia versus Ukraine. You know, you got Israel versus Russia. And ultimately, you know, Satan's being divided against himself. You know, that Satan, you know, that's going into Esau even, you know, the self-proclaimed white man. You know, it's not a red being, you know, with horns and a pitchfork. You know, that's not speaking about that. It's speaking about the self-proclaimed white man, as we know him as Esau, Edom. You know, and that's what's going to come in these current days. You know, they're already divided, but how much more in the Jacob's trouble, you know, the times of trouble. So, the next scripture that I want to get is Second Esdras, chapter 2 and verse 27. And it reads, Be not weary, for when the day of trouble and heaviness cometh, others shall weep and be sorrowful, but thou shalt be merry and have abundance. So yeah, ultimately, the elect, the ones that are serving Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and, following his law, statutes, commandments to the best of their abilities, they're not gonna have to worry about, all these conflicts and sedition amongst men, because ultimately that's going to be for the 2/3 and the heathens. The elect are going to be in the midst of it, but ultimately, they're going to be covered in that day. You might be in the middle of it, but ultimately Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is going to put that covering, that protection to be covered in that day. We won't have to worry about what we're going to eat. We might have to go, a day or two without eating, but ultimately Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is going to come through and provide for his elect. Everybody's going to be, starving. They're going to be crying. But ultimately the elect, they're going to be merry and have abundance. So, they're not just going to have, just enough, but they're going to have abundance, for believing and trusting in Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. So, that's pretty much it for this lesson. I want to give all praises, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, the great millstone, who all learn the truth from and rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the 1/3, the large multitude, unto you I say shalom.